Hi, and welcome to another C++ Noob to Pro programming tutorial from Someone9031. In this tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you guys about pass by reference and passing a reference in C++. So let's get started. And we start by looking at this function I have written here in my code. It's a void function, which means it doesn't return anything, called change, and it takes two integer arguments, int x and int y. And then change will swap the values of x and y so that x will have the value of y and then y will have the value of x. And we have here a temporary integer to hold the value while we're swapping it. And we print out the values of each variable before swapping. And then here in these three lines we swap the values. And then here we print out again after swapping. And then now in our main function we have two variables, int x equals 3 and int y equals 10. And then we print out the values of both x and y before calling the change function here on line 22. And then we print out everything again after calling this function. And so let's run this program and look at the output. So as you can see here, main before change is 3 and 10, just as we'd expect. Function before change in this change function is also 3 and 10. Function after change is 10 and 3, what we expect. But now this is the interesting part. Main after change, 3 and 10. Now why? Okay, we know it's worked because we printed it out after swapping it and all that. But now once we got back to the main once we got back to the main function, what happened? It gone back to what it was before. Now why is that? That's because we were using something called pass by value, which basically means when we pass in these arguments, a copy is made, a copy that is local to this. As you might remember from my last tutorial, local scope. Local just basically means, it's in the function. So a local copy is made inside this, and it's that local copy whose values we're swapping. So when we're swapping here, we're actually not swapping the ones in main. We're swapping copies of the ones in main. And then once a function returns, or basically ends, which it ends here, okay, it ends, everything that's local, like every local variable, all the arguments are deleted. They're cleared out. So once we got back to main, all of this doesn't exist anymore. We're using the variables in main, and those are still the same because they were copies that we changed. Now you might be wondering, okay, is there a way around this? Because it's annoying. Now the way around this is called pass by reference, and its name is sort of deceiving. You're not passing a reference. What you're actually doing is passing the address into a pointer. So you're passing pointers basically. So to do that, you have to change your arguments to be pointers. So as you can remember, by dereferencing a pointer, you can directly access the value stored at its address. And when you call the function to pass in arguments, instead of passing in the variable, you pass in the address of the variable. So now x and y are now pointers, and they have the address of the main x and y. So they can now, if we dereference all of this, it can now actually modify the actual x and y. And notice we don't have to do anything to temp because that's just a normal integer, so we don't need to do that. We don't need pointer for that because we don't need that to be modified. So no, we have to dereference all of this stuff because otherwise we're going to be working with addresses here, and that's not what we want to be doing. We want to be working with values. So to dereference all of that, now run the program, Okay. And now you see here, main after change is now 10 and 3. So that's because in this function we were able to modify the actual x and y in the main function. So now this is sort of cumbersome. The way you have to dereference everything each time you use something and pass in addresses and stuff, I don't want to be doing that. It's too much typing. So there is a way around this also. It's called passing a reference. And in doing this, instead of passing a pointer, we pass in a reference, an actual reference. So to do that, we change this to these asterisks to ampersands. And notice that because these are references, we don't need to pass in addresses and stuff, because references are just a lot easier to use. And because they're references, you might remember from my references tutorial that you don't need to dereference or anything. You just use it the way you'd use the actual variable. So get rid of all these dereferences. So as you can see, our code is now a lot cleaner and easier to manage, but it still gives us all the functionality and power that we wanted from the last pointers version of this change function. So as you can see, result is the same. It works exactly the same. It's just a lot cleaner, easier to manage, and it's a lot easier to use. And passing by reference and passing a reference provide more benefits than just that. As you might know, a function can only return one value. Okay, so what if you had a function that had to cube and then square a number? Now, how would you do that? Because you can only pass back one value. So how do you pass back two? And the answer to that is either using pointers or using references. So let's rewrite this change so we have something instead. We do this. Let's have x equals x times x. Okay, and then y equals y times y times y. So now we've squared and also cubed variables. So normally, if we did pass by value, this would be impossible because we'd have to do x equals x times x, return x, but then we'd have to do return y, and it just wouldn't work. So now we can do that, and we can save the one value it can return for error reporting. So we can change this to bool, so it returns boolean. So we can return true or false to see if it worked or not. So we can have here bool test equals false. Let's just do if x doesn't equal 0, so like that. That basically means if x doesn't equal 0, test equals true. Return test. So we've been able to square and cube a variable without having to return them, and we can save our one value that we are allowed to return error messages. So if x equals 0, then it would return false, because this would amount to not true, and it wouldn't run test equals true, and this would return false. And then we could have something down here. Change this. If change xy equals false, cout error. here. Sorry, I forgot to put the quotes. So like that, and yeah, I guess that concludes my pass by reference and passing a reference tutorials. So if you like this video, please subscribe. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please watch again. Thanks for watching.